Welcome to Charm City Cyclocross. This is part of the USCX series in Baltimore. Started day one here. Nice pavement, muddy pavement, slick start. Kind of scary entrance into like a little ditch up here around a right hand bend, going pretty quick around these. I got a pretty good start, got a good call up. Seemed like in the top 20 wheels right here, and then around this corner this Belgian guy just loses his front wheel, and yeah, we eat it. Good times. So now I'm pretty much at the back of the race, and I'm just gonna have to fight my way through as much as possible. Sent these first few corners, but did not have a lot of space to make it through up the flyover here. The dudes had to get off his bike. There was a lot of that on this course. Some tricky sections where if you make mistakes, you have to run. Going up this section, I did not expect to get bonked, but here we are. My camera got bonked, and then I got pushed down the hill a little bit. But continuing on in this ridiculous sport that is cyclocross, they actually opened up this section here right before the women's race, the UCI section, so everybody was riding it for the first time-ish on this. I snuck in right before the women's race and got like a half lap in to see that section, to know that you could ride it, but it wasn't terribly faster to mount and ride it for me, especially when I made mistakes like that and had to dismount and remount again. Some ruts were forming, but they were also drying out because it was pretty warm. It was a very hot race for having rained just before, and it was very humid because it had rained just before. So everybody's just like riding through this mud and steam, and it is personally getting to be pretty good. I was trying to pace pretty hard to catch back up to everything. This little section here, you could run or ride, but I feel like running was quite a bit faster. The barriers here were kind of slow. I think most people ended up running those. They were pretty tall as well. And then back to the notorious off-camber of Charm City. I started dismounting on the drive side on this and remounting up top just to get this little section in of riding down this. I did have my backup shoes on for this race. They were the only ones with mud spikes in, so I put those on, and the cleat placement was a little different than I was used to, so I kept having issues with like clipping in. One of those things I've just got to dial in or get the same pairs of shoes. Cyclocross is weird because you have to get two of pretty much everything and then spares on top of that if possible, and everything's got to be as close to the same as possible because of how much muscle memory is involved. Here on this section, that's me riding versus this Kelly Benefits guy running it. Sometimes, even if you can ride it, you should not run it, especially with how slow I rode it there. Lost the front wheel there on that section trying to ride it, which was kind of weird. Maybe an indicator that I was gassed. Very gassed. After probably the first day of GoCross, my legs just like totally imploded. I think I had been training a little bit too hard through road season, did a lot of race days. That is the only excuse I've got because my legs felt terrible. But trying to learn the cross course, trying to get a little faster. Throughout all these races, I was pretty much just like going faster, even though I was definitely pedaling less hard. There's a lesson in there somewhere. Probably just need to have better instincts in cyclocross, but nonetheless, cross is super fun for learning all these soft skills, getting a lot smoother on the bike. translate into road pretty well, even if I'm not getting the results that I probably could if I would focus on it. But we're out here to have fun. Do a mud run with a road bike and some slightly knobby road tires, as is cyclocross. Later on here in the race, I'm pretty much giving up, just having fun with it. Everybody yelling cool things about my Haro cyclocross bike, almost running off the tape into that guy. I'm gassed. I'm seeing double, but trying to have fun where I can in this muddy course. Up ahead, Andrew Strohmeyer was pretty much just taking it away, getting a big gap as usual, and yeah, he's killing it this year. Pretty impressive. I think he ended up finishing with around a 1 minute gap to Scott Funston, with Eric Bruner in third, Kerry Warner in fourth. I ended up crashing very hard after taking this bike swap and landing on my collarbone. Did not break it, but I decided that was the end of my day. So pulled off the course and went home. But here we are on day 2. This is Sunday. Worst call up, but feeling a little bit better. Legs a little looser. A little bit less invested emotionally in the result of this race. Liked the course a little more this day. They did a few changes, which you'll see. And hoping not to have the bad luck of the start from the day before. Coming around this corner, not sure what's going to happen. Hoping nobody crashes. Not too bad of a position, but we make it through. Totally fine. Drone overhead. Pretty cool. Glad they're allowing drones in these races. Makes for some pretty neat shots of riders moving up. I took this outside line, which looked pretty good. Still not a ton of places to move up anywhere, really. Keep trying to go inside, and then you just get really chopped like that right there. And yeah, go inside again. Just get piled up into. Nobody's going anywhere. This dude's falling all over the place. This guy and I think his name is Remy. He's pretty young. Very fast for how young he is, but he takes some hard lines, and it's always in front of me, which is a bummer. There's this little bump here. I was hitting and doing a little tail whip every time. That was probably my favorite part of the course, just because you got to jump it, which was cool. Still on this first lap, going into the second flyover, the run over. Not in terrible position, but I'm going to have to move up if I want to get that top 20 spot, which was kind of my goal. This guy's chopping me again, and yeah, taking us both a little gap backwards. There are some races, Go Cross specifically day 2, where he would chop me, and then I'd literally only finish the race in order to beat him. So I think today was kind of a similar situation. Like, he chopped me, and now the entire mission of the race is no longer getting like UCI points or 20th place, but rather to fight that guy. And here he goes again on the left, making up a lot of space right before this technical part where you've got to run a lot. And a lot of guys were riding around this part. You can see them kicking up there. That seemed to be the better route. If you could ride up the hill and then get into the little rut, he decides to dismount a little early and just throws me off of everything. This is the perfect situation of not having a cool head. Ended up catching back up to him. I was mounting on top of this part again and then riding down the rest. You can see it here. Running on that was, yeah, this guy was just sliding all over the place. I should have maybe gone a little bit earlier to cut in, because I would exit a little too wide here and then have to pedal out of it, which you can see I lost a little space even though I was riding it. A little bit later in the race, I've made it nowhere, still in the same spot. Really like barriers, probably my favorite position of the course, probably my fastest part of the course, and then chopping the inside of that. Sometimes I would get the right line there and make up plenty of space. Other times my brain just wasn't working. Continuing through this onto the off-camera section, still wanting to ride it, get right into the rut that time, and start kicking, trying to get to the UCI only section. This guy's falling all over the place. Down to the grass. Feel like I'm saving some energy on here, but who knows. Going up this grass section, a lot of the guys at the front were riding onto the off-camber. I tried it a few times, watched Strohmeyer do it, and he was making it to like the top rut often, but it seemed like watching afterwards, some guys would just cut across earlier and just be riding on the bottom part, like where that dude's got his bike. So I think I was a little too focused on getting up to this top rut to ride when I could have just like cut across earlier and probably ridden the whole time. I tend to need a little more time on these courses to get used to it. Not doing a ton of off-road racing throughout most of the year, mainly on the road. These little soft skills take a little bit longer to get used to. Getting chopped again on the inside, just fighting as hard as I possibly can for 22nd place. Figured out on this part that it was a little bit quicker for me to run, even though I could ride it. One of those sections where it was faster to run most of the time. Coming through the right after the start finish, and I'm a little gassed. Ended up grabbing the tires a little bit too much and smacking my hand on the inside of that. It sounded worse than it was. Continuing to race, I think I'm like 23rd, doing the little tail whip over that section. That guy on the left near the crossing would always lock eyes with me and just give me a firm head wag. Left shifter stopped working. I think the contacts on the thing were gumming up. Couldn't shift to an easier gear, so made those last few laps pretty difficult. Switched to my other bike. Ended up in 22nd place. Eric Bruner with the win on day 2. Andrew Strohmeyer in second, 22 seconds behind, and Scott Funston in third. I think there was some pretty dramatic final racing in that. Definitely recommend looking up what happened at the front of that race if you can. But this has been Charm City. Pretty wild. Really figuring out how not to race cross in this season opener. But got some more races coming down the pipeline. Hopefully can get them done a little quicker than this one. But there's sliding in the mud. Thanks for watching. See ya.